We are back with another episode of the Black Box Podcast. I'm your host, John, and this time we're actually bringing back Luca Abatemarco, who was one of the sorry, one of the first few guests on the Black Box Podcast. And back then, he was working for Microfabrica as a process engineer of sorts, and basically aiding in chip manufacturing. Now we're talking about playback engineering. So he basically made a career change into an entirely different field. But if you know Luca, his passions have always resided in music and live performances and stuff like that. So this is more the bigger picture of the episode is that while he still is young, he made the decision to take that risk and go for trying to make a career that is a little more difficult, but something that he truly loves and is passionate about every day. And that's something that we always like to talk about here on the Black Box Podcast, as hard as it can be. And there are situations where you it's not feasible if you don't have savings to get you through tough times, if you're not making consistent money, or if you have a family you need to take care of. Plenty of reasons. So I'm not saying like anyone could just stop and do what they're passionate about right now. It's more like there are situations when you can, and there are situations where you should take advantage of those opportunities. And Luca did, so that's why I wanted to have him on again. And I think it's super dope that he's traveling the world and you know aiding in performance and productions of for like really well known artists. You know, that's pretty much it. Great, cool episode. It was a little more chill. You know, Luke is my boy, but I think there's some good points to take out of it, and just you know, never give up on your dreams, kind of thing. But all right, let's just get into it. We'll talk about it, and at the end, Luca gives you a little treat. He plays some guitar, and I think it was really cool. But all right, let's get into it.
Hey guys, just wanted to shout out Zencaster, our platform of choice for recording remotely with our guests. They're sponsoring this episode, so tune in later to hear more about some really great offers. Hey y'all, we're really excited to tell you about Blvck Ice, the black-owned jewelry business owned by Sean Moore, our previous guest on the Black Box podcast. If you think about it, Blvck Ice and like Black Box, it's like it's almost like it's meant to be.
Exactly. Yeah, but we like to focus on investing in the show, so we kind of look at it as we're partnering up with a asset class. Jewelry is considered an investment, and with the stock market and crypto being pretty volatile right now, and for the most part going down, jewelry, especially precious metals, gold and silver, those tend to preserve their value really well. So you know that's also another reason why we think it's a good opportunity. But also, I've worked with Sean in the past. I got a gift for my mother actually for Mother's Day. It was a relatively custom piece, nothing crazy, but Sean was quick, he was easy, he was responsive, the price was fair, and we just met up and transaction was easy, and my mom loved the gift. So
Yeah, if this all sounds good to you, check out Blvck Ice's website at Black Ice NYC, and at all socials. And there's a V instead of an A for the black. So as you guys are probably used to with little letter substitutions by us, but you could find stock goods there. And Sean also specializes in custom goods with quick turnaround times.
yeah, Sean does great custom pieces. I've seen a bunch of them on his social media. But yeah, he's also good for sourcing, like watches, specific Rolexes, anything like that you're looking for. He can also get you a better price than, if you're going to, a bigger name shop or someone that you don't really know that might try to gouge you on the price. So along with that, it's also supporting an upcoming entrepreneur. He's had a lot of success. He just celebrated his 1 year anniversary of the business, had a really nice party. And
Let's get back to the show.
And we are
hey,
live.
Luca, this is
Black
number two,
Box.
episode number two. Last time we were talking about your career as a process engineer in a field related to microchips. And that's kind of what we
Yeah.
based the episode around. And this time we're going to be talking about something completely different because you've had a little bit of a career change yourself. If you want to just,
Yeah.
cover that quickly.
Totally. Yeah. So I previously, when I was last on the show, I was working at Microfabrica, which was, working in the semiconductor space. And at the time that I was doing that, I was also volunteering on the side at a local music venue in downtown LA, um, just doing some volunteer front of house sound, which is the sound at the back of the crowd, making sure it sounds good for the audience. And I mean, one night we had some somewhat bigger artist come through, and his sound tech that night I met and got to talking to, and ended up uh, he's now my boss, because I ended up going to his house on like weekends and like learning about what it is that I now do. So what that is playback engineering, which is a really crucial part of a lot of modern shows,
Like live
concerts.
performances and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Um,
So I guess what is
so
playback?
so playback, its namesake, some people like joke around and like to call playback guys spacebar pressers, um, because you press play. But playback is at its core what it sounds like, playing tracks live. It's backing tracks. Most major shows nowadays they use backing tracks for live shows to make the performance sound fuller and more similar to what it sounds like just listening to their studio album, just to basically create a more voluminous live sound. And it becomes really, for a lot of major productions, it becomes the hub for the show, in the regard that when you switch to track, uh, it oftentimes will require, or it's easier to use tracks when you're also, having your band be like on ears with a click, and having it all be, on the grid, so that it's, as they say, so that it's all snapped to, your tempo with the
Yeah.
tracks. And what that opens the door for is essentially all these other things that you can automate with the show. And one of the uh, one of the cool things for that, for instance, is like, playback guys will frequently send time code to the video teams, whereby the video for like music festivals and stuff is synced to the what the band is playing behind them. um, and it's like, no matter where in the song you were to, if you were to start playing halfway through song number 5 or whatever, the visuals would immediately snap to that point in the song.
Gotcha.
um so
So is it
and
about
and
like synchronizing or like transitioning?
yeah, it's about keeping really tight sync, so that when you play the video, it's like, essentially the way it works is when the playback guy playing audio then hits play on the first song, the video just starts with the song.
Okay.
So that's why I said it becomes the hub for the whole show, kind of, is that, you know, the video team is likely, a whole separate team and all, but because the audio is the source of all of
The
the
cues.
information, the data, the cues, the start of the song as pressed play by the playback operator will also be the start of the video. And as well as, the click tracks, I mean, it's part of the playback, but the click tracks going to the band members. So that's another thing, is all of the clicks and
Yeah.
slates going to the band members. um
Oh, really? Like
Slates,
into their ears or?
yeah, yeah. So it's like, that way the band, um well, because the band has to hear varying levels of the backing tracks and their live instruments and all that, in order to stay in sync with the track. I mean, like, what you wouldn't want to have happen is to introduce backing tracks just for the band to end up getting out of sync, and you make the performance worse. That's like the opposite of what you would want. So you have to And I mean, there are some ways of including certain backing tracks without click in certain circumstances, but I mean, for the most part, it's pretty difficult to do that without a click. Yeah, unless it's some like really programmed part that's like perfectly on the grid. But I think even
You're losing me
then,
just a slight tad because I have no idea. I don't have a great idea
so
as to what
no,
all of
I'm
this is.
sorry. I'm
No, you're good.
just going off when I say when I what I meant by on the grid was like perfectly on beat, you know,
Okay.
because
Yeah, yeah.
I mean even your drum player is not going to be like perfectly on the beat, you know.
And they
So
set
it's like
the major beat for the song, so
yeah, and I
okay.
mean that's okay in general. It won't sound bad with live drums and a true drum track in the backing track as long as it's done right. It's mixed right, but they need the click, a lot of times to do that.
Gotcha.
In fact, a lot of times drummers like to have clicks in their ear when they're either recording or playing live in general, just to make help them just help keep them on track since they're providing
Gotcha.
the rhythm for everybody. But
Well, yeah, there's like, especially when you're performing live, there's probably a bunch of different distractions. So you need, I guess, whatever help you can to just make sure you're not screwing up.
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like if I got up and performed, like, there's so many things that can go wrong. But also, I am not artistic and have very little musical talent. But that's just besides the point. Um, yeah, so I guess that's kind of what you do, and that's kind of what a playback person does. They're like orchestrate everything. But how did it go from you meeting this guy to you doing what you do now? And I guess what is like a typical, like, how is business done for you? Like, I can just say, because I know we've talked enough, that you get like gigs, you get jobs. Maybe you could walk us through how that goes, that process goes, and how you would like, a trip would go. Do you travel, like all that stuff?
yeah, totally. So um, when I started down this path, I formed my own LLC. So I work with an agency, I work within a network of other engineers that the clients that we work with within the agency are it's like the agency's clients, and I am essentially an independent contractor because of the way California's laws work. I have my own LLC, and uh, so it's my own LLC for using with the agency that I mainly work with, or other clients of my own on the side.
Yeah, so you don't have
Whichever.
to work for one company. You're really like you're self-employed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
basically just saying that I'm self-employed. Yeah, um, which is we love to be self-employed in California with our $800 a year in annual franchise tax or whatever it's called.
really.
Um, yeah,
So
yeah,
did you file taxes already?
yeah. I still have to.
How did that process go? I guess
It was a pain. I'll be honest. It was a really big pain
was it
finding
gathering a
tax
lot of
this year.
expenses and shit? Like,
Yeah, but also I just had so many different sources because I also do
yeah,
stock stuff, and then on top of that I had my I mean well this is easy, but I had my W-2 from my the last few months at my old job. Um, anyways,
yeah,
so yeah, I'll talk a little bit about how I actually got started with this. So um, there was a lot to learn for playback because playback is quite a niche thing even within the music space and live music space. Playback is something that not a lot of people do or have the know-how to do at a really high level. It gets very part of the reason is that it gets really techy. So I had to learn a lot of technology, and I was there at my boss's house, you know, helping him repair and assemble rigs for playback, and just meeting a bunch of the engineers that would come through his house, and we work on rigs, and we get to talk to these people who are the best at what they do, and really just learn from the best how to do playback. And uh, yeah, there's it's a very technical thing, because not only are we playing this audio out, but we also will be doing things like MIDI connectivity with all the instruments on stage running into interfaces on our rig and stuff.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for instance, and one of the things you would do for playback is virtual instruments, where you have like one keyboard on stage, and every song you're sending a program or patch change, so that as soon as you hit play on song number two, keyboard on stage updates to its settings to song number two settings. And the way
That's
you
sick.
yeah, it's sick. I mean, I've
That's
done
fire.
some big shows where everything is um literally everything is programmed out, where it's like I hit play on the next song, and another, all of this program changes go out to, like, so that the keyboard on stage, like two guitar pedals on stage, and all these other things, they're all like, they will all be you know put
Manipulated
onto
by like a certain signal or something like
yeah, they'll all just be put onto the next song as soon as I hit
configuration. Yeah.
play. And that it's all programmed out, it's all automated, it's very cool. And then there's also vocal processing too, live vocal processing. So
That all actually interests me because it's, it is engineering in its own aspect, but it's basically like a protocol probably that all these apps are all like the tools and different programs used together, and then they just communicate via that. That's how they send the messages in like packets is probably how they do it. But um yeah, and then also on the other aspect with audio, that's like
yeah,
analog
yeah,
signal
MIDI
processing and whatnot. So
MIDI is basically, it just gives like these
it's giving.
MIDI, the way it works is like there's like 16 possible channels of MIDI, and it'll just give these note on, note off um, messages, or control change messages. There's a pretty finite amount of possible messages MIDI can send, but basically a lot of times the way it works is you can program your equipment to listen to any old MIDI note. Like you could basically be programming your things to be like, okay, so when I hit play on this MIDI controller, it'll send C2, like the note,
Oh wow.
like
Okay. Okay.
C2 in MIDI, in a MIDI data packet to this, which it just knows, it's programmed, it knows to listen for C2 to trigger this. So it's like um
That's probably exactly what happens. Yeah.
yeah.
That's cool. That's sick. Um, yeah. So I mean, like, just to keep driving the convo, we could just
Yeah.
BS the whole time, but um, yeah. So I guess that's kind of how you started. You met him through the volunteering, and then that now it's your boss. Basically, you started doing work with them. But um, I guess what's like, yeah. Let's just go with what's like a normal trip, like what's a normal job looking like how does it work with like communication of signing, like do you just get booked out, or do you get to negotiate, like do they pay for everything, like how's that, we can cover that quickly.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, thing is with music business is that it's a uh, pretty personal business. I mean, everybody, I would say, does their business a little differently. But in general, I mean, we all have, you have your negotiated rate with a client, and that's about it. I would say that it's kind of it's hard to say like what kind of variation there is, because it's not really like there's not necessarily an established norm for rates and rate negotiations. There are certain standards that are established. I mean, like I would say that people use day rates is kind of the
Okay.
system,
Yeah.
um, but every artist is different and has different budgets, and it's kind of up to every person, every audio professional, to make a decision about whether certain artists um, budget meets
Yeah.
their expectations. And
I guess it's like a self-regulating market in a way because
yeah,
it's like determined by if the people that like the playback engineers determine if this person's offering high enough, and if they're not and they're consistently getting turned down from being able to hire people because their rate is too low, then they'd eventually have to raise their rate in a way.
yeah,
And then I
yeah,
guess like
I suppose, or figure out how to run a show with fewer elements, I suppose. But um yeah, so a typical day, a typical gig. Well,
yeah.
it depends. You have your one-offs, which is just a one, like sounds a one-off show, which might be in your city. Where I live in Los Angeles, there's quite a few of those that uh, I'll take. That's just, if it's in your home city, you could just drive there, and it's like you have rehearsal. Maybe you have like rehearsal the day before, or whatnot, and then there's one-offs that are in Tokyo, and those that's funny. It's like you fly, take a flight booked by the artist that you work with or whatnot, and go do a show in some other country. It could, one offs can. I've done both of those types. I certainly
Yeah.
like traveling. It's a huge part. I mean, it is like one of the major parts of live performance is traveling. Um,
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that whenever you tell me about what you've been up to, one of the parts that I'm always thinking is the coolest, but also like the probably the biggest pro to it all is the traveling. Like you've
yeah,
gotten to go to a bunch of sick places all over the world at this point, and it's only been what, a year? Has it been a year?
yeah. It's been close to a year. Um, Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you got to get really good at day trips, I guess, because you typically won't have more than a day or two to
To go
yourself
explore.
in between gigs. Um, largely because when you're away from home, the day rates will continue on day offs any day that you're away from home, um, typically. So,
Yeah, they're gonna pay you for the whole time that you're there and working, even if it's an off day. And then they're also what, gonna take care of your travel and accommodations.
yeah, yeah, the
Seems pretty
basically
standard.
regular or standard stuff. I mean, like I said, I don't know that there's different negotiations. Basically, anything that could be conceived of that could be agreed to is fair game,
Yeah,
I would say.
as
Um,
long as it's probably not anything too ridiculous.
yeah, but um, well, it depends. I mean, like for instance, what I do is like there there's no like union for playback or something, like, so for what I do, for instance, is um pretty off of that kind of a grid. It's
Gotcha. Okay.
more self negotiated, but uh, yeah. So tour, it's the other thing. It's the other big
Oh,
thing
oh yeah, you're right.
is
You're right.
is
The coveted tour.
it would be yeah, like a U.S. full, like full domestic tour, full international tour, what have you. Those will have much longer. You'll might be in rehearsal for like 2 weeks before you actually set out on a tour. Um,
And then you're working with the
and
same people for a set period of time and stuff. but also like you're getting paid indefinitely for the entirety of the tour, right?
It depends. I mean, sometimes like you'll be routed back home for a couple days here and there for day offs. Um, but even if your day offs are in a city that's not your own, then yeah, I mean, let's say that
I'm saying,
the
yeah. So like most of the days of every month, you're going to be getting paid, which is pretty sick.
yeah,
I
I
guess
mean,
that's where
that's
like it becomes worth it.
yeah, tours are basically the financial bread and butter for live audio professionals. It's the only way to to make enough money to really offset any like inconsistencies in work and whatnot. And um, you know, people who are touring for the whole year can do pretty well for themselves. Um, and
Gotcha.
it's a really chaotic thing being on tour. It's like
Well, yeah,
um,
I mean, you get paid for what you're doing. Like it's probably a lot of hectic, like you're traveling and then you got a limited amount of time to get everything situated and set up, and you're also then working with the same people for months at a time, living with them basically in a way. Like you get your
I
own
think
rooms, but
yeah, I think it's just like bus life, you know.
well, that too, you don't have any like solidified place like
People,
domicile.
yeah, yeah. So um, people who have a. I haven't been on a full length tour yet. A lot of the shows that I did last year were a lot of like kind of fly tour like shows, which is another thing that you can have where it's like a number of shows, but it's just they're all kind of pieced together fly dates.
Like you go for a weekend or something, like a long weekend,
Um,
and you do a few shows, or
well, yeah, or but they'll be like you fly to this city and rehearse, and then you fly to this other city for the show, and then you fly
gotcha.
maybe fly back home for a day, and then fly out again to another city for another show. It's like it's just more so like piecemeal than a full tour. Because a full tour, it's like everyone hops on the bus and you hit city after city after city after city, and that's how that goes. But that so
Gotcha.
I haven't had the chance to do that yet. But I I've been told it seems like it's one of the more challenging aspects for like mental health and just
Really?
like life on the road, just like kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
maintaining like a semblance of your
Sanity.
routine and whatnot on the road is one of the challenges that a lot of people say for them. um
Okay, that makes
I mean,
sense.
like people, people who do this
Yeah,
have it
your
down.
environment's always
So
changing, so
yeah, I
it's
think
gonna be
it's
hard.
also just kind of hard to sleep on a bus. So it's
Definitely.
kind of hard. It's like these little bunks. It's like constantly like,
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, I could fall
you know.
asleep in any environment, but just getting asleep would be a problem there, and I'd probably get car sick. Not gonna lie. Um, unless there was anything else you wanted to say there, I was gonna ask you kind of deviate from this as a whole and bring it more to like the idea that you had to make an important decision at a point almost a year ago where you could either pick to keep the safe and secure job, one that you didn't absolutely hate but you didn't love it by any means, and between that and doing something you love and you've always had a love for music and live performances, and you got your guitar in your hand right now. We'll hear something later when we fucking wrap it up, but like how did that come down? Like how'd you come to the decision, and what were the thoughts going through your head at that time?
Yeah, so I had worked for close to 2 years at that company, and I was making good money, and so I was like, well, I saved my money up pretty well. I had a solid amount of cash that could sustain me on its own for like a year. It was like a year plus, just if I
Yeah.
just sat at home and did nothing. So it was like all right, well, I'm gonna, if I do this, I may not have steady income uh, right away. Like, I might just be doing like this gig or that gig here or there, but based off of the cash reserves that I had at the time, and the fact that I would get jumping right into doing some gigs would be what made me feel confident. I was like, I've kind of given myself the best footing for this as I could. I mean, I wouldn't recommend
Yeah,
doing this kind of thing if you don't, like, you need some kind of financial, it's just a fact, you need some
yeah.
way to pay your bills. And if you're coming from a pretty highly paid job and you have a financial basis on that, okay, sure. um and Basically the first gig that I was able to work on was a semi-regular gig. This is play in Los Angeles, and I think like my boss was he offered that to me. And um, basically the thought that was running through my head was, all right, well, I've got this semi-regular thing, and I've got cash stockpiles pretty high, and I'm super motivated to try this new thing and explore this awesome world that I haven't been uh, or that is so different than what I had been doing, and was excited, and I just took the leap,
You sent it.
which is at the end of the day the final thing you have to do is actually take the leap. It was kind of crazy last month at my job too, because uh, our that company's parent company is a Italian company, and
Yeah, they went public.
uh, I had been on a business trip there before, and in my last 2 weeks before I left, they were like, "Hey, we need someone to go to Italy." It's like, "You want to go to Italy your last two
Oh yeah,
weeks?"
I remember that. That was sick.
So yeah, I was like, "Well, sure," But and so that's how I made my exit. So I felt even better about going out on those terms. And yeah, I think now, now, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just excited to keep doing what I've been doing, and um, work with more artists, get more gigs under my belt, and just always learning more stuff. I think
I
it's
guess like
really
what's been the
important.
biggest challenge so far? Like I guess obviously there's some financial and like resource based challenges, but what about like mentally? Has it been like tough? Like trying to get work and
So I
starting
think,
out.
so yeah. I mean, there's definitely a mental challenge in months when work is lighter. And even though I have cash stockpile, or have had cash stockpiles, um, in those off months you want to like do some other, have other streams of income or whatnot. And so figuring that out was a challenge, because I came from not really being in a W-2 situation where I didn't have to really be too scrappy.
Yeah,
um, but I mean, as far as the job itself goes, I think the biggest challenge was becoming this one man machine, sort of this one man team, because you're never a one man team in an artist camp. Everybody has their own jobs, but um, it's kind of like, whereas like my old company, it's like one team is basically like one job is basically split up amongst the team. It's like you kind of
yeah,
are your own team
yeah.
in this
One man
kind of
army.
role. It's like, um, if it's 2 a.m. in Dubai, and you're working on some kind of like session, some kind of like live session or whatnot, doing edits, and that's entirely your game, you know,
Yeah, yeah. Like no one's
and
gonna help you or do it for you. You can't hand it off to anyone. Like it's just a responsibility. I feel like, right?
it's just
You're
a significant amount of responsibility. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
you're carrying a production on your shoulders in large part, and it's not fair to say that that's fully the case, but it's just kind of um, you the show as it is could not necessarily happen without a successful playback experience. So
yeah.
it's really critical. It's really show critical that um, you know all your what's the phrase? Chickens are in
Oh yeah, your eggs are in a row.
all your eggs are in a row. Is that it?
I think that's what
Um,
it is.
and so yeah, it can be challenging at times when you're abroad in other countries and unfamiliar places, um, to keep tabs on all the things. It's like you have to make sure that all of your gear gets there first of all, through TSA, and then through just baggage services, and undamaged, gets there undamaged, and then you have to worry about local power supply requirements, this and that. There's a million little things to
I
consider when
didn't
you're
even
going abroad.
think about any of that. Yeah, there's probably so yeah. It
Well,
makes sense. I mean,
you never want to get to a venue in Turkey and be like, have your main power outlet not be working. It's like
yeah,
one of the things with playback guys, we always bring backups of everything. I have like multiple backups of a lot of like pieces, especially when I travel abroad, like things like power adapters and power strips and stuff.
that makes sense. I mean,
It becomes a pretty big burden to travel with so much of those backups for various things, but it's kind of it's needed for peace of mind. You have to have backups. Um, I think I forgot to mention earlier that on top of all of like the playback, audio playback, the MIDI, the vocal effects, and all of that, um, there's also redundancy. That's a hugely critical part of what modern playback programmers and techs deal with is building redundant systems that if you lose your main show computer for any number of reasons, that you'll have seamless automatic switch over to a backup show computer with its own
yeah,
DA converter, its own digital to
yeah.
analog converter, and um,
So it's basically swapping over to like a
its own
duplicate.
power
Yeah,
supply. Basically, as many things as you can make. Kind of a goal of playback guys to make as many things redundant as they can. Power supply, computer interface, DA conversion. Um,
any possible point of failure, I guess.
exactly. You just want to, yeah. You just want to,
Yeah,
you want to
be
increase the
prepared.
amounts
Yeah,
of points of failure that you have.
increase the amount or decrease the amount, or just cover all of the amount.
No, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but increase the amounts, because you don't want to have like a single block. It's like not preferable, at least. Sometimes we do use certain products that are really popular that will
Oh, I get what you
be
mean.
like
Okay.
all in ones, but like there's a danger to using an all in one product as well.
You basically need to
because
just throw it away if it fucks up, and just get like just swap over to a brand new entire all-in-one machine. When like if you could swap out one smaller thing, then that would be
well, because for example, if like both of your computers are going into one interface that is switching between the computers, that's all well and good. But if the interface breaks, your backup computer might be fine, or both computers might be fine. But if you don't also have a backup interface, so it's another thing. I think it's moving further towards a lot of people are using like all-in-one units, but a lot of the rigs that I've worked on with the agency that I work with, which is called Electronic Creatives, by the way.
electronic creatives.
Yeah,
Shout out.
shout out. Um, a lot of the rigs that we work on are designed to have maximum redundancy in terms of actually redundant conversion and interfaces. And
Got you. Podcasting remotely can be challenging, but with Zencaster, the process becomes much easier. Zencaster is an all-in-one web-based solution that makes the process pretty painless and simple. Um, Zencaster allows to bring you guys, our listeners, the best quality by providing crystal clear audio and gorgeous HD video when we record with our guests. Zencaster is also easy to use for new users and guests. So, when we have people on the podcast who haven't used the platform before, we pretty much just tell them to show up with a computer, mic, and headphones, and you're pretty much good to go. Zencaster is pretty plug and play. But from local recording to automated post-production tools, you don't even have to leave the browser to finish off your episode. Use the code zen.ai/blackbox and enter our promo code blackbox. You'll get 30% off the first 3 months of Zencaster Pro. It's time to share your story. The reason why I wanted to have you on to talk about it was more because of like the fact that most people, there's many other reasons I could play into it, but like if you have a family and you have a responsibility to take care of other people, you wouldn't really be able to do this. But I feel like there's a lot of people, especially the audience that we have, which is mostly younger adults. It's scary to take a leap towards something that you have no idea if it's going to work out, but it could be your passion. In most cases, like what you want to do is usually what you're passionate about, and then you kind of take the safer, maybe you got that good paying job, that 6-figure job, and you're okay with that, and you're just going to ride it out instead of taking the risk. I mean, if there's anything you could tell that person now, what would you say? Don't do it. Don't take the risk.
don't do it. Go back.
No.
No. What I would say is that, I mean, do it when you're young. First of all, I mean, I'm only 24. It's why I feel okay doing it. But I was 23 when I did it. But I mean, I think the important thing is if you're going to take a risk like that, to have a contingency, or like have like just plan it out, just like have a plan, and just don't be as little as non you kind of it's unfortunate, but you have to be kind of as on it about your plan as you can. I mean, you have to forecast how far your savings can get you, and be aware that if you have to make money at your new endeavor as soon as you can, and find ways to make money part-time if you can't in the meantime. Like it's the economic reality. Do what you have to.
Gotta grind it out.
DoorDash if you have to. I don't know.
Little side hustles, little side
DoorDash is so
income.
bad, so bad.
Yeah,
So
I didn't
hard
do
to do.
DoorDash. I've done Uber, and that
Uber,
wasn't.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
hard.
it
So
basically
hard.
breaks you even at the end of the year, or whenever you
Break.
stop doing.
But
Yeah, you
what you
don't
say?
make much. Yeah,
Yeah,
after
you
taxes
said
and
it
whatnot.
breaks you even. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it breaks you even.
It's really not. It's like impossible to actually make money doing those things. I don't understand
You
it.
give me a bunch of your time, I give you net zero income.
Yeah, and like thousands of miles of wear and tear
Yeah.
on your car.
Maintenance on your car. That's kind of factored in though to the breaking even, like the bottom line. But regardless,
Supposedly, but
send us out, bro. Appreciate you for
can
coming
you
on for the
can
second
you
time.
hear
Yeah, we
me?
can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so